السلام على خاتم النبيين والمرسلين سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين. من مسجد الأمة نحييكم جميعا بتحية الإسلام، فسلام الله تعالى عليكم ورحمته وبركاته. موضوع هذه الحلقة، والحقيقة ربما الحلقة القادمة إن شاء الله، ماذا كان سن السيدة عائشة أم المؤمنين حينما تزوجت من رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم. ونقول في البداية, we say in the very beginning that there is no need to dwell on how important this topic is and how some murjifin, those who are hate mongers and Islamophobes, have spun that issue. Proper coverage of this topic should not just be to begin with the issue of the ham, but in fact to address first in this particular session is child marriage, however different, permitted in Islam. To answer that question, or to try to answer that question, I humbly don't know of any, notice the words, explicit minimum marriageable age in the Quran or Sunnah. And I stand corrected, we're all learning. But let me repeat it again. No explicit minimum marriageable age in the Quran or Sunnah. Because we find a reference in the Quran, and I haven't seen too many people who refer to that actually in the context of early marriage, because the ayah actually deals with the guardians, instruction to the guardians of the property of the orphans. I find it amazing if one look at it carefully. The ayah is a little long, but inshallah I limit myself to the part that relates. I'll just read the first ayah. Let's stop at that. What does it mean? I finished my responsibility. Hey, take your property and do with it what you want. That this is not fair. All of us need part of their property. Some carload with popsicle. فإن آنستم حتى إذا بلغوا, when they reach the marriageable age, sound judgment, rushd, sound judgment, return their property to them. And in fact, what confirms that understanding is the remaining part of the ayah. وَلَا تَأْكُلُوهَا إِسْرَافًا وَبِدَارًا أَنْ يَكْبَرُوا. It means don't hasten and just get rid of that responsibility and be wasted or squandered. That it speaks about, but we can say that there are conditions like, we use the term reach puberty, varies considerably of puberty. Necessarily be totally puberty. Usually is there between accurate depiction of the scientific data I'm coming to, inshallah ta'ala. As early as the age of 9. Others, there's a whole range, others at the age of 15 to 16. Now, I happened to search also in the internet on the issue of when, especially girls, boys usually are 1 year later than the girls. But of course, what is more important, speaking about our mother of believers, inshallah, we focus on females. Now, I get across an article that was published in the famous British publication, The Guardian. Actually, it was first published 21st of October 2012. I'm trying, rather than reading it all fully, it might be a little boring, just to focus on some of the issues. I might be reading certain parts that are quite sensitive. The title of the article, tellingly, onset of puberty in girls has fallen by 5 years since 1920. No one is sure what is called, for our purpose, narrations, or that's not based on research. For example, I found another one is a statement of an expert. However, a health expert, it says most girls get their period very similar. So, but while she's a health worker, so her testimony, of course, have a little more value. But I thought that the best really is to get to some research work, because scientific research, especially dear brother Dr. Saad knows and others, scientific research is usually reviewed by people. No respectable journal, scientific journal, will publish anything anyway. So it is at least based on proper scientific methodology as well as peer evaluation as well. One of the best I found in terms of scientific rigor is one by a woman by the name of Marcia Herman Giddens. Marcia Dia was working in a pediatric clinic in the famous American Duke University, which has a medical center. Aged, the signs, let me change the words because of children with us here. We can say the signs of the onset of puberty held that they saw. She began collecting data that eventually focused on 17, pretty respectable one. Age of this 9.9 years, while for black girls it was 8.8. So we're talking again in the range of 8 to 9. Now, the article indicates that this discovery was hugely controversial. Shouldn't hide that. Hugely controversial. Actually, many doctors said that they could not accept the fact that more and more girls began maturely to... the article mentioned something of some detail that I don't want to bore you with. That in medicine also there is this particular term they use for abnormalities. So we should not take that as an average. Abnormality here means, for example, a girl that began the period when she's still 7 or something of that nature. It's far away from that range. I mean, 1 year really make a difference in this early development, physical development. Today, however, that's at the time of writing the article, most doctors accept that the age of the onset of puberty is dropping steadily. Many studies have showed this to be the case for girls, and some research compiled in another aspect also said it could go even lower than that, and it's going down several, every year actually it is going down. Some quick figures that combines this and also some other studies they got from in Germany. It says that in Germany, for example, of girls was 16.6 again in 2010 and female, except that they say that this constant, all of that, but they sort of be associated with the increase of the age, of be familiar with that production and profit. Obviously, it affects also, in fact, seem to be chemicals in the environment are all factors. I'm just not really taking to a field that I'm not trying to overlook some of the other reasons simply because I want. In any case, it is now unarguable that the question of insisting as that being a man. I remember that girls cannot marry any girl or boy, for that matter, either, under the age of 16. That you must be 16 years of old. It's subjective matter, changed in a few years. Not only this, they even added another provision, made it even difficult to marry early, even if you're over 16. They say, for example, that a boy 16 and 18 would be either the parent, or if the parent is not possible, legal standpoint, if you reach only age of 18. I remember, this is just an anecdote, it's not science anecdote. I remember seeing a program one time on the CNN several years back, a girl of the age of 14 in Halifax, was married at the age, no specific age, and of science and minimum age, it is so clear. Second, and we'll go back to the ayah, because that's what our starting point really, we just comment on whether that reconciliation there. Number two, physical maturity may not be sufficient for building family. Marriage is not just a physical thing, khalas. And emotional maturity is important as well. And here is why I have to share with you this point that I stand corrected, and our scholars also present, Jazakallah khair. If you go back to the ayah to remind you, it says, حَتَّى إِذَا بَلَغُوا النِّكَاحِ. Test the orphans when they reach the marriageable age. The nikah is not just a contract, actually it means marriage, consummation even. But then it didn't stop at that. It added a condition. فَإِنْ آنَسْتُمْ مِنْهُمْ رُشْدًا. If you feel that they are mature, meaning, is translated, mature emotionally and psychologically, you should not give them their property yet. Okay? So that seems or alludes to wisdom and emotional maturity. Because, like I say again, if you're a family, so you don't want just a family like this. It's serious. ميثاقا غليظا. It's a very solemn kind. So it is reasonable to say that أنستم منهم رشدا may actually refer of puberty. All right. The third one of 6 points. In the context of our age today, the 21st century, it is what is even has been conventionally accepted 15 to 16. It is safer than marrying earlier. If marriage was delayed by a year or two until this rushd is better, the qiyamah lan taqum, the day of judgment will not take place. But if you marry earlier and there is harm, and I'll come to that issue of harm again, physical or psychological, then of course you shouldn't do it. And of course, one of the aspects of the beauty of Sharia is that within the definitive aspects of Sharia, the permanent, excuse me, or to look at the historical context and textual context and the time of where you're living. For example, just to give you an example, in many poor countries in the past and even still until the present, جزاك الله خير بارك الله فيك سقاك الله من يد الرسول صلى الله عليه وسلم آمين. What was I saying? Yeah, in poor countries, for example, even in, if you go back more so when really reach puberty and reasonable. And my wife tells me, from example, from her experience or knowledge, is that farmers pure farmers in Egypt or something. Especially, like I say, when education was not that important. Now it's changing. But, the girl reached maturity. She told me that sometimes she have seen girls at the age of 10 who's looking after her brother and doing this and doing that. They're mature early. One time I saw a picture of the many people, many orphans who lost their parents. And my heart melted at a young girl that appeared to me, يعني, probably at the age of 8 or 9 even. Apparently, either of her parents or both were killed or whatever. And she's carrying her own brother, feeding him in the picture, doing that. In our age times, but we have to look at it reasonably. Education now became compulsory in many countries, especially up to a certain level, or i'dadi as they call it, or primary, at least to high school, if not more. How long does it take a child to reach that level of education? And if they get married that early, no, it's not haram, but so reasonably speaking, saying that our situation today speaks in favor. Jazakallah khair, ya akhi, barakallah fik, aghraqtana bi karamik. You drowned me with your even in a common sense and Islam. But I have a good surprise for you, an amazing surprise. You said this is the article, actually. It says 15 to 16, scientifically speaking. All right? That day. It's better, we think. Published by Mu'assasat al-Da'wa about a very recent scholarly meeting. It is, by the way, it's not related to the country where it was held. It was held actually in our government's council. The council, and of course, it is exceeding, of course, alhamdulillah, on the spot, it may not be that accurate. And the extent of the authority of Wali al-Amr are restricted. And منظمة التعاون الإسلامية, this is the منظمة that Erdogan chaired until recently. It's independent also. In its 23rd cycle of meeting, met in the Medina al-Munawwara throughout the period that I mentioned to you. And after examining the research papers presented about the marriage of the right of wali, the interest of the girl, yet reach proper decision is the age of, just say it as is, in puberty. This, and it is possible also that on the research that the Sharia did not contract and marriage. Of marriage, the determined or is determined variations of times of both parties. Repeat a part on some, sometimes may, of his compassion and mercy towards his daughter, after he takes the permission of the judge, and if giving his daughter in marriage may cause her harm, the father has the right to stop. They have no right to marry a young person, a young given age. So the maslaha of the community is part of that. May I add one point also, which is very important. There is a rule in usul, which is at the same time a sound hadith of the Prophet, harm himself or herself, or accepting text. If there is a physical harm, because some people say no, but the girl may reach the age of adolescence, but she hasn't completed really her physical maturity. Fine. If the specialists and those who have the knowledge determine that there is harm, then according to that hadith, you don't do it. So In the meantime, if it is proven again by the specialist that there is no harm, in addition to all of the other causes, then the same thing also would be applicable. Now, then coming to number 4, it says, marrying girls that are young by the permission of the judge. Of course, I'll come to authorities in every country based on the conditions of time, space, and whatever achieve the interest of the society at large. Number 5, you must observe the interest of the girl at the time of marriage. It is not for your benefit as a wali or even father. The interest of the girl is supreme. Okay? 6, that the guardianship of the father or any other guardian with respect to the girl's marriage is restricted by meeting that maslaha or achieving that maslaha for the girl. Number 7, there are only 9 inshallah. The permission of the girl at the time of her marriage is a must. Is a must. This is something that needs to be clarified, because يعني لا ينعقد عقد الزواج حتى أصلا. It is a prerequisite for validity of marriage is the offer and acceptance that both husband to be and wife to be agreed to that. And this would be relevant also when we come next. While we covered that also in some other programs on the family in Islam, just a reminder that according to the hadith of the Prophet نفسها من وليها كما قال, يعني that a woman who is married before, she may negotiate her marriage by herself. It doesn't mean that if customs and decency or whatever, if she prefers it for her father, it's decent, it's nice. So she's giving her approval, that's fine. Going to complicate it because there have been some opinions even say that even that, in that case even, if the woman is minority opinion and the hadith of the Prophet ﷺ that any woman who, but of course according to the other hadith, not any woman, I mean woman other than thayyib. Some ulama, as they show it in Arabic, حملوا الحديث على الصغيرة. حملوا الحديث, that say the hadith also is valid that there is void, but they say conflict, as some people might when with a condition لا ينعقد, and it is subject to annulment. Okay, we have 2 more. Look to determine, which seem to be a bit repetitious from what was said before, the age that is suitable for marriage as much, and the family and the society, suitable punishment. It must, some of the medical or health younger ones that was mentioned before, i.e. between the age of 15 and 16. And it is not dawabit. And that could be a judgment of trusted physician. To put it in a simpler way, to use the fuqaha language of the fuqaha, about some countries, if the purpose behind that is to discover perhaps some genetic abnormalities that might affect the discovery, for example, of disposition to certain measure. You know now, actually sometimes now they do surgeries inside the womb of the mother. They do, you know, through the endoscopy. So if that is something that might benefit both parties to marriage as well as their progeny, then there is no harm of that. So I think they may perhaps be relating to that. So in other words, can government do that? They could. That is, there is no evidence that they could not do it. It is permissible. But permissible things may be for a good maslaha of the community. I find this session, we'll get to the controversial one that, like I say, all Islamophobes take it as a means of attacking the honor of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And there might be some controversial information also, but inshallah we'll try to seek the evidence. But my purpose of starting with this, that even an older debate actually, said the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam when marriage also was, anyway, is to say that aside from your preference of one opinion or the other about the age, whether you think that one position or the other is more convincing, that at the very least, and that's why I started with that, I didn't jump, that so what? So what? We have seen scientific data that more than one, that even if she was 9 when marriage was consummated, no problem. It's not really something. And we don't judge something we feel proper or improper in our time, unless you go to some extreme, of course, that this matter have been subjective in many cultures throughout. Likely, almost certain, inshallah, it might be. I don't like to travel, especially Regina in the province of Saskatchewan. So I'll be meeting you, and I tried my best to see if I could go early or so on to inform you so that you don't come. Of course, you should come for Isha if you can. No problem, it's preferable, but at least no disappointment, inshallah. The reason I say almost certain that if indeed there is more time, I am doubtful, because may Allah give us fiqh and says what. But we're open if there are things that are compatible with our Sharia. Yes, no problem at all. Barakallahu feekum. سبحان ربك رب العزة عما يصفون وسلام على المرسلين والحمد لله رب العالمين وصلى اللهم على النبي محمد وعلى آله وصحبه وسلم. My apology, I intended only 50 minutes, 45, 50, so I exceeded that a little bit. So you want me to give you a rain check for 10 minutes to be deducted next time? No, I can't promise. It depends if the topic. جزاكم الله خير. So I must say that I didn't quite, okay, but I was controversial among physicians until finally became scholars in this international conference. They didn't say that. Medical norm that is emerging in many. The difference in age, that's not an issue at all. Yeah, we hear about variety of success. The here is the bond, the love, and the product. But many people say, science proves the Quran is right. Astaghfirullah. Science is judging whether Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is right or wrong. One, our Quran and sound Sunnah. That's it. That's our base. No, we don't just keep imitating this. But we're not closing our mind. So but instead of saying science is now compatible with what the Quran said 14 centuries ago, and if indeed there is a point of meeting in ijtihad al-bashar analysis, al-hikmah, knowledge, anything useful, other area. جزاكم الله خير again. تفضل دكتور هاني. Inshallah. Absolutely, absolutely, absolutely. Yeah, Jazakallah khair. So for others, maybe the age will be much lower. In Islam, the point is who's able to carry Islam. I was صحيح. صحيح. اوكي، جزاكم الله خير، نراكم ان شاء الله. تفضل يا دكتور. تفضل.
أشد أعداء الإسلام كان أعداء النبي لم يعترض على
Yeah, I was going to mention that about Aisha. And like Sheikh Saad said, actually, she was engaged also to another person before the Prophet ﷺ. And then they were afraid that if their son marries her, they consider that heresy or something. وإياكم. الله يكرمكم. الله يكرمكم ويبارك فيكم والله يكرمك. شكرا.